Hi, my name is Laura Kaleric, and I am making this first presentation for OGL 345, talking about consequentialism, deontology, and virtue ethics. The first thing that we went over in class was consequentialism. This belief was that the right action produces the most intrinsic good. When we look at it, they believe that the most ethical approach is the one that creates the greatest happiness or utility and minimizes consequences. The more good the act produces, the better that it is. There are a couple different methods that we talked about. The those would be utilitarianism and egoism was the other one. These both are based on creating good, the maximum amount of good and the least amount of bad, but with egoism, it is very self-oriented. It's believing the good of the one, while utilitarianism believes in the most good for the most people. Egoism, like we had spoke about, is a belief that a person should act in their own self-interest. Another belief that the egoism does apply to is an individualistic perspective that believes a person can serve their own self-interest when deciding what is moral or right. Example of this that I've heard before is say it's your birthday and you're going out to dinner with your family, and your favorite restaurant, let's say, is Thai food, but you know that not many people in your family would like it. It is your birthday, so you get to pick, but instead you pick something that you don't like as much but would make everybody else happier. Egoism would be you going out and going to that Thai food restaurant no matter what. Well, the utilitarianism method would be one that you would pick the one that would benefit everybody, that most people would be happy with. Utilitarianism, like I was mentioning, believes that principle of morality is maximize happiness or utility and minimize pain, and to maximize the overall happiness of the most people. Jeremy Bentham, who lived from 1748 to 1832, was the founder of this principle. He urges that everyone is ruled by pleasure and pain. And believes that we should try to maximize overall happiness. Utilitarianism has critics and believes that overall happiness should be considered, and the moral thing to do would be the one that creates the utility for the greatest number of people. Like our example, we would be talking about going to a restaurant and eating a meal all together, and that method satisfied the greatest number, so it created the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Sorry, I repeat myself, but the individual rights are neglected in this method, and that's what some people focus on with utilitarianism, is that the greater good doesn't always mean the right thing. There has been historically oppressed minority groups where the greater good wasn't always the best thing to do, or what some people would consider the most virtuous, but it satisfied the most good in the end for the most people, and that is somehow up for debate with people who believe in this method. John Stuart Mills is another big name in this method that we talk about. He lived from 1806 to 1873, and He believes in utilitarianism, but argues that there's no qualitative differences between pleasures, only quantitative differences. Which is to say that one thing causes as much joy as another is a hard thing to determine. And he also believes that people view utility differently. We went into in the book about how different people viewed happiness, and the whole ignorance is bliss concept kind of came up to in my head, is something that kind of stuck out to me, that people might be completely happy with a yo-yo, and that might be the bestest thing ever that's happened to them all day, while another person might find no joy in it, but is more fulfilled with like intellectual pursuits and stuff. He knows that happiness can be hard to measure. It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. Better to be Socrates dissatisfied than fool satisfied. And if the fool or the pig are of a different opinion, it's because they only know their own side of the question. And I like that quote. It kind of helped me understand what he meant when we were talking about utilitarianism. But when we look at this approach, we're talking about the end result and the good at the end. In consequentialism, egoism focuses on what is best for self, where utilitarianism takes into account with the greater good of the total. The next concept that we got to is deontology. This was in our second module, and like consequentialism, deontology is an ethic of conduct, how it acts, what to do. Unlike consequentialism, deontology is not focused on the end result to determine good, but the act itself is what determines. Deontology is a concept that the theory of morality of an action should be based on whether it is right or wrong underneath a certain set of rules. I like this quote that I had found saying, "Do what is right, or the world may perish." This kind of shows what deontology is all about. People say, don't lie, because lying is bad. But what if a lie saves a person or a set of people from harm in a given situation, and even if it's a small lie? If you go by the method that lying is wrong, then this gives no wiggle room or doesn't allow for any deviation from that plan. Oftentimes when we talk about deontology, it's something that Immanuel Kant had made famous. He has often said things like the golden rules that we believe in are don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, etc. He was also a firm believer that religion and morality are a terrible pairing, that we should be keeping them apart because morality is constant. Most of the time, whether you do something or don't do something isn't a matter of moral choice. Instead, it's just a contingent on our own desires. He had different types of views. This was called Kantism. He believed that there's different ways of categorizing things. There's different imperatives called hypothetical imperatives, and this example was given that if you want money, then you ought to work. These imperatives are things that you must follow to get what you wanted, where it's more about prudence, not morality. Categorical imperatives are things that you must follow regardless of your desires, like the don't kill somebody. He is a firm believer that religion doesn't help us determine what is right or wrong. It's just, you just know because you are born with that innate knowledge that things are right or wrong inherently. There were two other things that we spoke about besides Kantism when we were talking about deontology. One of the methods that was talked about was that certain rules can be broken if situation called for it. For example, killing would be wrong, so abortion would be wrong. If killing is wrong, abortion is wrong. But there would be what I call stipulations in this method, where that if a mother's life were in danger and she were to lose it, if she were to have this child and did not intervene with an abortion, that would be a rule that would be considered moral still, because we are choosing the mother's life over that of an unborn child. And there is also another method called particularism, which believes that morals should be flexible given the situation. That killing would be okay if an intruder was going to come in and kill you, given the situation that you might die. This might be a situation that could call for flexibility, which seems a little bit odd in ethics. But the last method that we talked about was the virtue theory, and unlike the other theories that we went into, the virtue theory is ethics of character. The other ones were looked at as actions, and this looks at the character of a person. Aristotle was a person that made this theory most popular, and thought that we should all try to be virtuous and believe that an individual's character is the key element of ethical thinking. And again, with the virtue theory, things are either virtues are seen as good, such as honesty, being kind, having integrity. And with this approach, it says that basically decisions should be made in accordance with somebody who possessed virtues would choose. It was said that if you're a good person and you had good virtues, that good deeds would follow. Unlike the other methods that we were talking about before, like consequentialism or deontology, those are things that look at the act itself. Virtues look at the person and what they believe in. If you believe in good or you act good, good things will happen. Consequentialism, we look at the act and what the end result would be. And the deontology, we look at the act itself, whether it be right or wrong in nature. Is it okay to kill? Is it okay to lie? If you lie in one situation, does that mean everybody can lie? That's a deontology method. Well, virtue would look at the person's virtue as a whole. If you're a good person, an honest person, would you steal? No, you wouldn't. Being that person leads you to make the choices that you choose. So with all these methods, they all differ in their approach, whether we're looking at the end result when we are going into it, or if we're looking at the act itself, or if we look at the person behind the act. They also look at what might be would it be okay to kill if that would save everybody? Sometimes that the final result will make the one act admissible for that period in time. I apologize. I hope this was what you were looking for. There was quite a bit of reading, so a lot of this kind of got gargled, but I think that I'm kind of on the right track, and a lot of things stuck with me. I like the virtue approach out of all of them, just due to the fact that if you're a good person and you had good virtues, that good acts should follow. A lot of what we learn I thought would be quite simple and easy to understand, but there's a lot of good reasons behind for and against many of these approaches. Thank you for listening to me blabber, and I swear I will hopefully do better with the next assignment. I just figured out this PowerPoint recording thing. I hope you have a good day. Happy Easter.